You walk into a room and forget why. You can't recall someone's name, someone you've known for years. You laugh it off, call it just getting older. But what if it's not? What if those tiny lapses are more than just age? What if they're early whispers of something deeper? Something you need to catch early, before it grows louder? Today, we're diving into the 7 subtle signs of Alzheimer's that often go unnoticed. Not dramatic, not obvious, but powerful. If you or someone you love is over 50, this video could be life-changing. So sit back, listen closely, and don't ignore the signs. Alzheimer's doesn't start with sudden memory loss. It starts in silence, years, sometimes decades, before the diagnosis. It slowly alters the way the brain processes information, how it stores memories, how it controls emotions and judgment. By the time it's obvious, precious time is lost. But here's the good news. Catching it early gives you power. Power to adjust your lifestyle. Power to slow progression. Power to make important decisions while you're still in control. More than 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's today, and experts say that number will more than double by 2050. But that future isn't set in stone. The earlier you notice the signs, the earlier you take action, the better your chance to stay independent longer. So let's break the silence. Let's talk about what early Alzheimer's actually looks like. Everyone forgets things now and then. A misplaced phone, a missed appointment, a name on the tip of your tongue. That's normal. But when memory loss interferes with daily life, it's time to pay attention. In early Alzheimer's, memory lapses go beyond senior moments. People start forgetting information they just learned, like what they had for breakfast or a conversation from earlier that day. They may ask the same question again and again, without remembering they already asked it. They may rely heavily on notes, reminders, or loved ones to remember simple things they used to manage easily. Another red flag? Forgetting important dates or events or mixing up time. Someone might forget whether it's morning or evening, or what day of the week it is, repeatedly. One woman we spoke to thought her dentist appointment was next month, even though it was marked on the calendar for the next day. That kind of confusion over time isn't just aging. It's a warning sign. When memory loss disrupts routines, cooking, shopping, driving, it deserves a closer look, especially if it comes with denial or frustration when others notice. If you see this pattern in yourself or someone close to you, don't ignore it. Talk to a doctor. Early memory issues aren't always Alzheimer's, but they're always worth checking out. Ever struggle to follow a recipe or balance your checkbook? That happens to all of us. But with early Alzheimer's, something deeper is going on. People begin to have real difficulty focusing on tasks that require planning or numbers. Things like paying monthly bills, understanding interest rates, or following multi-step instructions. One man told us he couldn't figure out how to set the thermostat anymore, a device he'd used for 15 years. Another forgot how to make his signature chili, the recipe he'd cooked every winter for decades. It's not about forgetfulness. It's about losing the process, the mental steps that make problem-solving possible. This also shows up in small but telling ways. Taking far longer to do simple math. Struggling to keep track of medications. Making more mistakes when cooking or budgeting. These aren't just slip-ups. They're signs that the brain's executive function, its ability to plan, reason, and organize, is being affected. People may also get overwhelmed more easily. Tasks that used to feel easy now feel frustrating, confusing, or even scary. If you notice a loved one withdrawing from routines they once handled with ease, or if they start avoiding tasks they used to enjoy, that's a signal to investigate further. Remember, loss of ability is different from lack of interest. Alzheimer's chips away at our tools. But noticing that early gives us time to protect what still works. Imagine sitting in your car and suddenly forgetting how to start it, or standing in your kitchen and not remembering how to make toast. That's what some people with early Alzheimer's experience. It's not about new tasks. It's about familiar ones suddenly feeling foreign. This could look like trouble using the TV remote, forgetting how to navigate to a familiar grocery store, struggling to log into email or open an app they use daily. Sometimes people start avoiding these tasks entirely, not because they're bored, but because deep down they know something's wrong. One woman told her daughter, "I just don't like cooking anymore." But the truth was, she couldn't remember the steps. It can happen at work, too, especially in jobs with routines or multitasking. If a person starts making excuses to avoid tasks they've always done, or begins depending heavily on others for basic functions, pay attention. Alzheimer's doesn't just affect memory. It affects function. And when familiar tasks become confusing or scary, the brain may already be under stress. Spotting this early lets you adapt before safety becomes an issue, and it can preserve dignity longer. Have you ever woken up from a nap and needed a second to remember what day it is? That's normal. But in early Alzheimer's, this confusion becomes more frequent and more disorienting. People may forget where they are or how they got there, think it's morning when it's evening, confuse past events with the present. One man went to his childhood home and was shocked when strangers answered the door. In his mind, it was still his house. This confusion often comes with trouble understanding something if it's not happening immediately. The concept of later today or next week may not land. Appointments are missed. Time becomes fluid. People with early Alzheimer's might also get lost on familiar routes, even in their own neighborhoods. They may forget why they went somewhere or feel unsafe once they arrive. This sign is especially dangerous when someone lives alone. They may go out, get lost, and not know how to ask for help. Families often describe this stage as the moment they knew something was off. Early intervention here matters deeply. With support and systems, people can stay safe, independent, and connected longer. Not all signs of Alzheimer's affect memory. Some change how we see the world, literally. One of the more surprising early signs is visual spatial difficulty. This means the brain struggles to make sense of what the eyes are seeing. You might notice someone has trouble reading, misjudges distances, trips over rugs or curbs more often, spills drinks by missing the edge of a cup. One man told his doctor he was getting clumsier. In reality, his brain was misinterpreting depth and space. This can be especially dangerous when driving. Someone may struggle to stay in their lane, misjudge the speed of cars, run through stop signs, feel anxious at night due to glare or poor contrast. And it's not just about the eyes. Their vision may test fine at the optometrist. The problem lies in processing, the brain's ability to turn visual input into accurate understanding. Some people stop driving altogether, not because they can't, but because it suddenly feels overwhelming or scary. They may get lost even with GPS, miss turns they've taken for years, or feel panicked in parking lots. Others avoid reading books or newspapers, not due to eyesight, but because tracking lines of text becomes exhausting or frustrating. The eyes move fine, but the mind can't follow. It's like everything was just a little off. One woman said, "I couldn't explain it, but I stopped reading completely." If you notice someone struggling to follow visual instructions, confusing left and right more than usual, having difficulty reaching for objects correctly, these may be signs of cognitive visual changes, not just aging. Also important, these challenges can make people feel embarrassed or ashamed. They may not want to admit they can't judge steps or that words on a page seem jumbled. So instead of saying anything, they begin avoiding the activity entirely. That's why it's essential to observe not just what someone says, but what they do. Is your loved one still driving comfortably? Do they bump into furniture more than usual? Have they stopped reading or sewing or crafting? It's easy to assume this is just getting older. But when visual or spatial confusion interferes with daily life, especially alongside other subtle signs, it's time to dig deeper. This stage is particularly important to catch because it can affect safety. People may wander, fall, or make dangerous decisions without realizing they're impaired. Some begin avoiding outings altogether, preferring to stay home where things feel familiar and safe. The good news? Once identified, there are simple modifications that can help. Brighter lighting at home. High contrast markings like bold colored tape on steps. Decluttering to reduce tripping hazards. Clear labeling and signage in the home. If a loved one still drives, a medical assessment may be needed. It's not about judgment, it's about protecting lives, including theirs. And remember, visual spatial challenges often go undiagnosed for months or even years because people blame their glasses, the lighting, or themselves. So awareness here is key. I thought I was just getting clumsy. One retired teacher shared, "I never thought it might be something in my brain." By recognizing these early visual signs, we can step in sooner, support the person, adapt the environment, and protect independence for longer than you might think possible. Have you ever had a word right on the tip of your tongue, but it just wouldn't come out? That happens to all of us sometimes. But for those in the early stages of Alzheimer's, this becomes a frequent, frustrating barrier, one that impacts daily conversation. You may notice someone repeats themselves often, stops mid-sentence, unsure how to continue, substitutes simple words with vague ones like thing or it, calls common objects by the wrong name, like a clock being called a watch or timer. They might also pause for long stretches, searching for the right word, or trail off entirely. He'd start a story, then just stop. One wife shared about her husband, like he lost the thread completely. Writing can be affected too. Emails become shorter. Handwritten notes may look rushed or disorganized. And spelling, once second nature, suddenly feels uncertain. Even reading aloud, something many older adults enjoy, becomes difficult. They skip lines or get stuck on simple words. This breakdown in communication often leads to embarrassment or withdrawal. People may speak less, avoid group conversations, or let others talk for them. The key isn't just noticing the silence, it's understanding the reason behind it. If someone you love is suddenly struggling to express themselves in ways that were once effortless, it's worth paying attention. Because when words begin to fail, it's often the brain asking for help. We all make questionable decisions from time to time. But with Alzheimer's, poor judgment becomes a pattern, not a one-off mistake. One of the most subtle yet serious early signs of Alzheimer's is a shift in decision-making. This doesn't always mean forgetting names or dates. It's about making choices that are out of character, risky, or simply don't make sense. You might see someone give large sums of money to telemarketers or strangers. Dress inappropriately for the weather, like wearing a winter coat in July. Leave doors unlocked or stoves on without realizing it. Struggle with managing bills, mail, or basic finances. At first, these behaviors may seem like quirks or signs of fatigue. But when they persist or begin interfering with safety, they can signal deeper cognitive decline. One common example is falling victim to scams. People with early dementia may become more trusting or less capable of detecting red flags. They may believe every phone call, mailer, or online message is legitimate. Others lose their sense of personal hygiene, not because they don't care, but because they forget the steps involved or don't recognize when it's needed. My mom always took pride in how she looked. One daughter recalled. Then one day, she stopped bathing. No makeup. It wasn't like her. Even in social settings, poor judgment might show up as inappropriate comments, impulsive decisions, or withdrawing altogether. What makes this sign tricky is that it can easily be misunderstood as laziness, rudeness, or even depression. But it's not always emotional. It's neurological. If someone's actions begin to feel off or inconsistent with who they've always been, it's not just aging. It may be the early signs of Alzheimer's changing how they process the world. Recognizing these shifts early allows families to plan ahead, financially, emotionally, and medically, before things escalate. Because when judgment begins to slip, safety, dignity, and independence are often the first things at risk. So, let's take a breath and look at the big picture. These 7 early signs, whether it's forgetfulness, visual confusion, or poor judgment, don't always scream Alzheimer's. They whisper, quietly, slowly, subtly. That's why it's so easy to dismiss them as stress, fatigue, or just getting older. But when these changes begin to affect daily life, it's time to ask deeper questions. Maybe you've noticed a loved one losing their words, avoiding once-loved hobbies, getting lost in familiar places, repeating stories every day, or just feeling different. If these signs show up more than once, or in combination, they're not something to ignore. They're a signal, a call to act early. You don't need to panic. You just need to pay attention. Because the earlier Alzheimer's is recognized, the more options you and your loved ones have for treatment, support, safety, and planning. And most importantly, for preserving quality of life for as long as possible. If you're starting to connect the dots, or even if just one of these signs feels familiar, it's time to take a proactive step. Start by keeping a journal of noticeable changes. Write down what happened, when it happened, how often it's repeating. This record can be incredibly helpful when speaking to a doctor. Next, schedule a cognitive screening with a healthcare provider. It's simple, non-invasive, and gives a baseline to work from. The goal isn't just diagnosis, it's understanding. Also, get the family involved early. Don't carry the worry alone. Alzheimer's isn't just one person's journey, it affects everyone, and support makes a world of difference. And finally, focus on what can still be done. Engage the brain daily, puzzles, reading, conversations. Stay physically active and socially connected. Eat a brain-healthy diet rich in omega-3s and antioxidants. Maintain regular sleep patterns. These small, consistent habits can help slow cognitive decline and bring a sense of control back. Remember, early action isn't about fear. It's about empowerment. Because the sooner you know, the better prepared you are. Alzheimer's may feel overwhelming, but recognizing the early signs is the most powerful step you can take. It's not about labeling someone. It's about protecting their independence, dignity, and well-being while there's still time. Don't wait for a crisis. If something feels off, trust your instincts. Talk to your doctor. Have the hard conversations. They may feel uncomfortable, but they could change everything. And if you're caring for someone showing these signs, you're not alone. Millions of families walk this path every day. There are resources, support groups, and people who understand what you're going through. The earlier you act, the more choices you have. More time, more options, more ways to honor the person you love. So, let this video be your starting point. Share it with others. Start the conversation, because someone you love may be silently struggling, and your awareness could make all the difference. Alzheimer's doesn't start with forgetting everything. It starts with small changes. Don't ignore them. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We're here to help you stay informed, supported, and empowered every step of the way.